is actually 10 feet plus above my house. So essentially, my ground level is 2 stories difference to the access to the alleyway at the rear. I present this because I guess I have some understandings that I kind of need justification for. If I were to access from the rear and my structure was essentially beginning at the level of the alleyway, would we even be kind of considering this height as an issue? And also too, this element of the offset, the rear offset variance, due to me being butted against an alleyway, do I really need a variance in that circumstance? That's also my question to the board. There's 3 variances sort of in question for this build, and I kind of want to kind of give us some information into each one. I also have a retaining wall that's actually sits just below this area that is currently failing. So the intent is to minimize the space at the rear to basically provide additional support for that retaining wall. I kind of in a separate task for my home have visited with several engineering groups that will not touch that retaining wall due to the condition that it's in currently. They've all suggested that I build in front of that wall to maintain support of that structure. So this sort of structure will also add, the additional support that's necessary for that. Here's an image of that retaining wall. It also shows the height that I've already mentioned in my previous image. So if you can imagine, this wall is this access would be at the 2nd floor of my home, pretty much. So, the structure, if I was to enter from the rear, would actually just be a 1-story building at the rear of the building. But because I'm measuring from ground level below this alleyway, this is the height. This becomes the height in question. Am I making sense? I had a little bit of caffeine this morning, so I want to make sure
no, you're fine. But I would caution you to slow down a little bit so the court reporter is getting everything, Mr. Tinoco. So
sure. Apologize.
It's okay.
So yes. So this is fundamentally one floor above. I guess the access that I would be using below from the street level, which is 1 floor below that. So we're kind of dealing with a few different levels here, and that's kind of why I think in our initial meeting, I don't believe I gave enough detail to kind of justify some of these. This is the retaining wall that I mentioned. There's been about 24 groundhogs that visit our area pretty regularly. There were some trees on the southern end too that compromised this. So all of these things are fundamentally, I'm trying to solve all in one-stop shop. Also too, the area proposed is a large area, 3 cars versus 2-car garage, essentially what it becomes. We currently reside with 3 adults, myself, my wife, and I'm kind enough to let my mother-in-law live with us as well. And our oldest child will be within driving age in 5 years. So this element of needing 3 cars is fundamentally the reason for the primary large area that we're asking for. I also wanted to note that the footprint currently is 1.2% over the allowance. And if you look, I have a staircase in this drawing that runs parallel to the cars parked. So that area actually takes up about 77 square feet, which is essentially that space that I'm over this variance of space claim. So if you consider, I can't put this staircase anywhere else without sort of compromising the space that I need because of the turning radius. And also too, if I have to beef up, so to say, this front end of my garage, the rear wall that butts against the retaining wall, I'm also additionally going to be limited in the space that I can maneuver a vehicle. And so that's kind of what I wanted to show here. I can't put that staircase anywhere else to access this sort of flex space that I want without not having enough room to maneuver vehicles. So that's kind of what I'm trying to show the board here in this drawing is, I'm already limited at space. I need 3 cars to just satisfy what I'm going to need over the course of the next 5 years with my growing family. And so, what I'm proposing is that I will not use this 2nd story for a dwelling. I intend to use that more for recreation. We have some toy rooms and some space inside the house that I intend to move that out, maybe move my office inside the house as opposed to outside. I'm willing to work and understand that this area on the second floor was fundamentally a lot of our questions in our previous meeting. So I kind of wanted to, get across that it's not just that. So this was the height variance. So this is kind of my justification here is, if I enter from the alleyway, I'm already one floor over. So this is the 4 feet of height that is kind of I'm trying to show here. And if you see to my south, 2 of my neighbors have garages that are fundamentally the exact same size. So that's kind of what I'm trying to wrap up here. And this height will not go over the height of my current home, which then won't impact my neighbor's field of view of the downtown area. And also too, that was the gist of what I considered the most prevalent question in regard to this build. I visited with the local housing association and all of my neighbors to essentially say that, that height will not trump their field of view. And also too, I'm sensitive to the fact that the community, this is the primary issue that they have. They enjoy their view. They do not want structures obtaining that view. They don't want large, apartment buildings or industrial areas taking away from that. So I'm sensitive to that in nature. And so I guess in summary, my primary question is had I been using this access from the rear to the alley to access my garage, would that change the height restriction if my build started at that level as opposed to the floor below? And the reason I leave with that is the primary reason why I don't do that is the cost associated with, restructuring that second floor. And also too, I can't necessarily watch everything that happens in this alley. Neighbors have had issues with people breaking in. People have ran into garages, accessing their homes from the Madison side. So that's essentially why I want to use the access from the opposite end.
Okay. Mr. Hernandez, are you still in support of this proposal?
Of the garage only. We just had an incident just right up the street there on Summit and tried the same thing and it didn't work. A garage is one thing, build a second story. I'm sorry. We've been fighting this for some time here and we still stand by that as a community.
Okay, so you're opposed to the height variance that the applicant is asking for?
Yeah, if it's a second building and we can't have that. That's the only thing. I'm sorry about that. But we're real adamant about protecting that. And we're actually under fire from the city for wanting to get rid of all them laws anyway. We're fighting that. And that's a big issue. So I hope you understand, Philip. The garage is fine, but I really don't want a second building.
Okay. So Mr. Tinoco, just so that, and you can stop sharing your screen now,
Okay.
so I can, it's easier if I can see everybody so I can tell if their microphones are on. Thank you, sir. So what you're proposing now is still to use the same height that you had at the last hearing, but you want to call it a flex space now. I mean, I guess, nothing would prevent you after we grant this for building it out as you propose. It's just it's a large garage. Even asking for the 3-car garage is, even if you did 1 story, is a large ask. I understand, I'm a board member, I understand your parking situation. It's the second story that we've had lots of these over the years, and it's that's not the nature of the neighborhood. So let me see what other board members' questions are at this point, since you've explained your situation a little more clearly this time. Board members have questions?
Yeah, without the second story, what's the square footage of the proposed structure?
600 square feet, 675 square feet, I believe.
And if you just did that, Mr. Tinoco, then you wouldn't need the stairs. So you'd have a little more space within that 1-story structure for storage, right?
Correct. Now, can anyone, I guess this isn't the permit board, but if I was to access from the alleyway, would this be a different discussion?
And Jared can probably ask for that. I mean, it depends on how you build up the back area. I mean, if you're going to build it, you'd have to build up ground underneath of it probably to reach the alleyway. So the height is the height, and it goes from the ground where it is. It's not so much the height from where it is, it's the height at all. So if you wanted to build 2 stories at that level, I mean, it's the second story, no matter where you have it, Mr. Dinoco. It's the size. It's another dwelling space above a garage that I think is bothering the board. You know, if this is a garage, you're asking for a garage. If you want more living space, the question is, you know, how do you get that in your house?
Understand.
Mr. Bernucci, I think I kind of interrupted you. Did you have other questions? Okay. Any other questions?
I could say something.
Yes, Mr. Hernandez, go ahead.
I've been in construction my whole life. I don't understand what you're saying, Philip. If you came off the alley as your main driveway, that would require a lot of money because of the concrete. You'd have to put a wall up there, and the top of to drive your car under that had to be concrete too. You're talking a lot of money.
Yeah, that's essentially what my neighbors have to the south.
Timbers to support a car like that, I don't think it would pass. You would have to use a concrete structure through the whole thing.
Yep, and that's fundamentally what my neighbors to the south have done. You know, there's 2 buildings to my south that have exactly that. Their storage space is below, and the cars are on top.
I've never seen that anywhere, but I'm just saying that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hernandez. All right, any other questions from board members of either the applicant or Mr. Hernandez? Then I would entertain a motion from a board member on this case.
Excuse the delayed response.
No, that's all right. No, I understand, Mr. Stiller. People are thinking this is an interesting case.
I did have a question of Mr. Tinoco. With the retaining wall height as it is, if the second floor area isn't added to your garage, do you have enough height to use the building as part of the retaining wall?
I do. The retaining wall sits, I think, 9 feet high.
9, so the roof would be just a little bit above that, kind of like gutter right on the alley level.
Exactly. And I don't know how I would deal with the runoff either. Like I can't get an engineer to even touch that wall right now because of the access and, you know, the stability of it. So, you know, that's also a major issue that I'm dealing with.
Mr. Tinoco, I'm one board member, and I think board members are struggling with this. I don't want to do this to you necessarily, but it may behoove you, because we don't have a diagram, to present us with a structure that doesn't have a full second floor, but gives you a little extra height to address that retaining wall in the back, such that you might be able to have sort of a small amount of storage, you know, above where you park your vehicles that you would access without a stairway or something. But to do that, I think this board would have to see a diagram, you know, an actual plan that would show us that so we could understand that. I think you understand the issue of the second story for the board. I'm just trying to give you an option here to consider.
Understand. And I'm also, if I gather what Mr. Hernandez is opposed to is necessarily this space being used as an Airbnb and things of that nature that have been done in this neighborhood, probably newly for the 10 to 15 years here recent. But I also understand that the city is considering changing those zoning requirements and actually entering clauses that would permit that. Is that correct?
I'm not on the city council, so I can't actually tell you what they're doing, Mr. Tinoco. I focus my volunteer efforts on this board, so I have to tell you, I don't know what that current status is. I can't answer that for you.
I'm just trying to understand the sensitivities as well, and you know what the primary issue is with that space.
Yeah, so, I'm kind of reiterating the chair's comments in that don't want to get in a spot where we approve something that once you get into the details, all of a sudden doesn't work for you, and then you got to come back. Like to think that with a little more time, you could get an engineer to work with you and get the retaining wall designed and the roof height and get some of the things sorted out. So what if we make whatever move we make is definitive and doesn't just create a different problem.
Understand.
Madam Chair, I also believe I heard him say that he's not sure how he's going to deal with the runoff, and that's kind of scares me. I would think that before you'd want to embark on a project of this size, that you'd get an engineer to look at the surface water drainage issues that might arise as a result of your construction.
Yep, I have, primarily to begin with this build, I wanted to solve the issue with the retaining wall to begin with. However, I'm in this ever long loop of whose responsibility it is to control that. The alleyway right now is currently failing about 2 feet out and starting to slough. There's a bulges coming through that from runoff, and then I can't understand if it's public works from the city to get out there and help me with that, or if it's my responsibility as the consumer of that water, so to say, from the excess. So I'm also sort of in this space where I don't understand, the responsibilities of that nature. So I do appreciate that concern, Mr. Keller.
So, Mr. Tinoco, do you want to try another continuance, or do you just want the board to rule on what you?
I think we can.
Okay,
I also too, I maybe putting in dampers or changing the height, in the calculation from the girders and that I'm understanding that what we can do to kind of help with the height.
so let me ask you this. Do you want a month continuance, or do you want 2-month continuance to try to work this out before you come back?
I think 1 month is adequate. As I mentioned, my engineering architect right now is sort of trying to work with permitting and zoning to get some of the answers required as well to limit the requirement on the zoning variances. And essentially too, I wanted to at least understand, the footprint and the rear offset. And
So
I
I'm,
think even perhaps getting a survey might help, because I think that retaining wall may be actually inside of the rear variance. So we may be discussing something that may not even need to be required.
so I'm going to suggest we consider moving you to March then, because of course we're off cycle and our next hearing is February 8th. So that doesn't really give you the time you need.
Correct.
So I'm going to suggest we have a board member make a motion to move you to our March meeting. And Jared, can you tell me what day that's on?
That would be
It's
March
March
8th.
8th, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I need to pull my calendar up. Okay, all right. So in light of that, board members, do I have a motion so that we continue this matter one more time to let Mr. Tinoco continue to consider different options?
So-
Chair?
Yes. So I'm sorry, who said that? All right. I have a motion from Mr. Banuki. Is that correct? Do I have a second?
Second.
From Mr. Stiller. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes with the motion. This matter's continued to March 8th. Thank you, Mr. Tinoco.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate it.
Hernandez. Okay, all right. All right, let's move to the next case. We're on docket number 5. Sorry, hold on a second. I had to change screens here. Okay, docket number 5, case number 139 with an address of 6400 North Gower Drive. With the applicant and all persons interested in the case, please raise their hand to be promoted.
I am promoting a Todd Bernadette. Sorry.
Madam Chair, I'm going to have to recuse in this case.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keller. You can blacken your screen. Thanks.
No one else has raised their hand.
Okay.
Todd is connected.
Mr. Burnage, can you please turn on your camera and your microphone, please?
And start video. Go back there.
Where? I'm trying.
That's all right. I hear you. That's fine. Keep that. We understand. We always try to have patience. Up there, I can see you, sir. Okay. Sir, good morning. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Todd,
Sorry, can you say that again? We lost
me?
you. You had, yeah, you had a issue with your speed.
Todd Burnage.
Now I can hear you. Thank you, sir. Would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Thank you. Sir, have you reviewed the staff report that has been created as it relates to your request for variance?
I think I have.
I'm sorry, we're losing you again. You're freezing. I'm gonna have to make sure we can hear him. Sir,
Yes, I have.
if you can hear me, do you have any other items running on your internet that you could turn off? It looks like it's a speed
And
issue.
Madam Chair, may
Yeah.
I suggest, if this doesn't affect anything legally, but since he's already been sworn in, sometimes city staff, we have this problem where running our cameras affects our audio as well on Zoom
Yeah.
meetings. So maybe if he can turn
Yeah,
off his
I just-
camera, his
yeah.
audio might improve.
Yeah, sir, why don't you turn off your camera for a minute and we'll just try to hear you. That might help. Okay, now can you speak? Let me see if I can hear you without breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. We're gonna do it that way since I've sworn you in and we've seen you and verified you. Okay, so let's do that because I think that's working better. Okay, let me ask you again this question. Sir, have you reviewed the staff report that has been created as it relates to your request for variance?
Yes, I have.
Okay, on the third page of that document, there is a list of 9 administrative exhibits that are before Anna's signature block. Any objection to my including those and having the board review those so we can hear your case today?
No, I don't.
No objection, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so exhibits 1 through 9 will be admitted. Anna, there is a PowerPoint presentation. If you would present that, then we'll have questions for the applicant.
Jared is the staff
Oh, I'm
planner. for
sorry,
this
Jared.
case.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did write the staff report.
You
though.
did, sorry. All right. All right, Mr. Clements, then you proceed, please.
Absolutely. All right. Before us, we have docket item number 5. This is case number CD BZA 2021-00139. The location is 6400 North Gower Drive. The zoning district is R-2.5, and the applicant is seeking approval of a variance to the accessory structure building height limitation and a variance to the accessory structure siding requirements. So this is the location of the subject site. It's in the northern portion of Kansas City. It's within the boundaries of the Line Creek Valley area plan. Let's see here. This is a closer view of the subject site. It's on Northwest 64th Street as it turns north onto North Gower Drive. Please note the siding of the principal structure. I have the arrow going towards it. From what I understand, the contours of this lot create a valley back here. The accessory structure is proposed in front of the home, which isn't allowed by the code. So as I mentioned, this is the site plan for the proposed garage. You can see it's in front of the existing house. This is the garage. Just for clarity's sake, this here below the garage, that's just the foundation plans. It will be below grade, obviously. So variance A is the accessory structure height is a variance of 17.9 feet. A substantial change to the character of the neighborhood is not anticipated given the layout of the property. The building could not have a usable second floor without the requested variance. And I believe that the building is part of some sort of kit, from what I understand. So I don't know how much, how feasible it is to change the layout of the structure. The siding setback, which is variance B, it would be a complete deviation. Substantial change to the character of the neighborhood is not anticipated. A change in the site layout would be necessary to obviate the difficulty. The feasibility of this is unknown. To me, perhaps Mr. Burnage could speak to that. And then Mr. Burnage also did provide a video of the subject site, so I will play that now. Let's see if I can, and let me know if you all can hear that.
We cannot.
Okay. Well, he said that there's no houses on this street. I'll just transpose it.
Okay.
Can you see it though?
No, we cannot see it either.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I will not describe the whole video. I will figure out how to show it to you. Perhaps I'll stop sharing my screen and then I'll share the screen that's showing the video.
That's what I was going to say. You might have to stop sharing and try again. Sometimes videos are difficult, I know, when you share your screen.
All right. Can you all see that now? The full
Yeah.
screen video?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. And hopefully the audio comes through.
We can't hear the audio, but we can see it.
Okay, so that's 64th Street, which is in front of his home. It appears as though he's going up the driveway here. That is his neighbor's property, 6404 North Gower.
So this is a public city street we're on right now?
This is his driveway.
Oh, driving.
Yes,
Okay.
so
All
he
right.
has a very long driveway, and then this is his property, the home. Let's see here. So as he turns, I believe this is the garage siding location. And you can see the slope of the street. Not street, but of the land there, sorry. I think that is probably enough. So that is his property. I think he was trying to show the layout, as I said, and I will just let him speak to the rest of his case. With that, I will conclude my presentation.
Thanks, Jared. Mr. Burnage, why do you need all this extra space in a garage?
We have different cars to park in there. It's going to be a basement garage and an upper garage. So it'll be like 5 cars.
So so for the basement portion of the garage, is it a drive-in garage or is it some sort of elevation that you drive in and lower a car?
No, it would be, I would go around the back to the basement garage. The garage doors be in the back of the structure.
And why do you need a second floor?
Storage. Never can have enough storage. But that was what Jared said is true. It came as a kit. I had no idea there was, the people that sold me the kit didn't say anything about having a problem with the height. So I had no idea when I got into this.
And do you have a garage that's already a part of your existing home?
Yeah, it's a 2-car, a small 2-car.
Okay. Does anybody else in the neighborhood have a garage of this height?
It's kind of a eclectic neighborhood. There's not a whole lot of, I don't know. There is a guy around the corner. He has the, the Outlaw, the cigar company. He built a big old garage. Yeah. So it's not unlikely.
Is it a 2-story garage? Was it approved by this board?
I'm sure it was. I remember getting a letter, being a neighbor, like my neighbors got on my deal. And I'm sure he had no opposition. But he did build it. And it's beautiful.
Well, the height that you're asking for is a very large variance. I'm not familiar with a variance that we've granted for such a height variance on another structure. I've been on the board since 1996. I could be wrong in my memory, but.
Well, my neighbors, I don't know if you could tell from the video, no one could see it. It's not like And then I had all my adjoining neighbors. I went to explain what I'm doing and they had no problem with it. And no one can see it from their property anyway.
Well, that's not the basis of a grant for a variance. I mean, the variance is that based on your property, would be a substantial hardship and, you know, you could put storage onto the side of your house in some way and build onto it to get storage. You know, these tall structures start to cause issues because they're beyond the height. And this is substantial. I mean, so I'm one board member. So,
Well, the height, I think 5 feet of the height is a cupola. So I don't know. I mean, it's not very, that's only like 4 by 4.
and what is the cupola? Just an open, just a decorative piece?
Pretty much, yeah. See that little, yeah, that little, I think it's only 4 by 4.
Okay, again, I'm one board member. Let me see what other board members have questions about.
Okay.
Anyone?
Yes, Madam Chair, a question, I guess for Mr. Clements. So the variance that we're looking at now for height currently is based on the lowest elevation all the way to the top, that little cupola. What, so if it were measured from the driveway side up, would there still be a need for a height variance? So we kind of have like a walkout basement kind of thing where even though that's how it's measured, it's not representative of the entire structure, because the bulk of the structure has grade, you know, up much higher at the first floor level, not just at the lower. So I was kind of curious what the dimensions were on the driveway side.
Sure. So give me one moment. I need to do some measuring in my on my review software. If anyone else has a question, it should take a second. So
Just so that I understand what Mr. Stiller is pointing out, which I appreciate because I'm not sure I appreciated this difference. Are you saying that what I see on this diagram that I think is depicted as concrete, that is included within the 17.5 feet measurement?
Are you asking me?
No, I'm asking Mr. Stiller.
Oh, yeah, my understanding is it would be, 'cause typically it seems like they measure from the tallest possible location, which would be around there on the backside.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that it's 17.5 feet from the wood on top of the concrete to the.
That's my understanding, too. So looking at the elevation, it looks like it's
Right.
33 feet above the concrete foundation.
Right, that's what I thought too, Mr. Stiller. So that's why I'm confused. If I really misunderstood the diagram, and I'm not an architect and I'm not an engineer, I'm just a lawyer that does some construction work. It's construction litigation, so please teach me if I'm reading these wrong.
So we're getting here.
On page 74.
Which one?
Page
Looks-
74.
and it looks, you know, forgive my math. It might be wrong because I'm doing fraction math on the fly here, but I believe that it would be 23 feet would be the measurement. So it'd be an 8-foot variance.
8 foot on the front side of the driveway side, and then up to 17 something is measured from the back side.
Correct. Yep. An 8-foot variance because it is it'd be a 7-foot variance because the height limitation is 16 feet for accessory structures, and it'd be 23 feet to where we measure the height to. That would be if it wasn't measured to the basement, if we were measuring it from the grade at the front of the building, which
Right.
isn't really how we do the measurement in the permits department, but just for how the board thinks about this structure.
And the measurement is what with does it take the cupola into account at all, or is it strictly from the halfway between the plate and the ridge?
Exactly. The plate and the ridge.
Okay, so no gains without the cupola.
And let me jump in real quick because I did write the staff report for Jared. I did not consider the basement and the height in my staff report. It is just from the foundation up.
From what side? I guess I'm confused now.
Me too.
So let me share my screen real quick.
Okay, I mean, I think this is important. We need to understand this
Yeah.
because 17.5 feet of a variance is more than double what's allowed. That's considerable.
Anna, could you zoom in? It's a little fuzzy.
Yeah, sorry. This diagram is the main one that I used to write the staff report.
Okay, and now describe to us what you're saying is the 17.9 feet variance from where to where. Can you use your little?
Yeah, I counted the top of the cupola. So it's this 33 feet, 11 inches.
Okay,
And our height measurement should be to the base plate as Mr. Stiller described. So I believe it should be the measurement. If you move your mouse there, Anna, to the 14.3.5. Do you see that measuring the first floor?
Yes.
Plus the second floor of 8 feet, 8.5 would be the sort of theoretical height that we were all talking about. And then it would be plus the height of the basement would be the true height, I believe, to that base plate.
so then it would be 14, you said, plus 8 plus the height of the basement. That's the,
That would be what the variance request would be too. Does that make sense?
because the backside is exposed, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so then what's that calculation? She's doing that now.
Here we go.
Okay. Today we're doing math and engineering.
Ooh. Oh God, sorry. So like,
35.
35.
so yeah, it ends up being similar to close to what I had initially put in the staff report, but
So on the front side, the value is, what'd you say? It's 14 and 14.3.5.
And then if you scroll up on a plus there you go, 8 and 8 inches and a half. 8 and 8.5 inches.
So that's basically 9 plus 14, right?
Mhm.
Okay, again, that's more than double still, right? From the upper side, right? Than the 10 feet that's allowed, right? Isn't 10 feet the allowed amount?
16 feet for a garage.
Oh, 16, sorry. Why did I read 10 in here?
The full requirement reads 10 feet for an accessory building, and then it has a stipulation at the end that it can be 16 feet. So you
Okay,
probably read that again.
sorry, that's what I was thinking of. Okay, all right. Go ahead, Mr. Stiller.
Back to your original comment, Jared, about 7 feet worth of variance on the upside or the driveway side. Looks like, okay.
Yeah, to do a sort of a final measurement thing. So the conceptual variance sort of that Mr. Stiller's talking about would be around 7 feet. That's the visual from the front. And then the true variance, the height of the back to the base plate is 19 feet. So it'd be a 19-foot variance.
And if you took off the cupola, that'd save them another 4 feet. Is that correct?
It is to the base plate of
Does that matter? Yeah.
Yeah, the cupola is not included in the height, actually.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Would it matter if he wasn't gonna use the basement area at all, if it wasn't accessed, if it was just foundation?
I believe then the height would be measured Well, honestly, I would have to ask someone from permits about that. I'm not sure. Anna, do you know?
Building height is measured from the ground to the highest point of the roof beams. We would have to double check with someone from the permits division, but I perceive that code to mean no matter what is on the bottom floor, it's measured from the ground to the highest point of the roof beams.
So as long as the basement wall is exposed, I think what Anna's saying is it would be a part of the calculation, which makes sense because you're going from where the ground is up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Then are we ready for a motion on this case?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Stiller?
I would offer up a motion on
Sure.
this one, given that the amount of slope on this particular property, I'm seeing as a bit of a hardship, and the lack of visibility doesn't seem to harm anybody. So I guess I would say, I would move that the board grant the requested variances in case number 139.
I'm going to ask for clarification because I think the variance might be misstated in the staff report now based on the calculation. So before I accept that motion, I should ask for clarification from Jared. Are the request variances still accurate in the staff report?
I do not believe so. I think if maybe we should check with Sarah, but perhaps you could say the variances as they appear on the plans that they submitted.
Okay, is that, Sarah, is that going to be comfortable, or do we need to recalculate these so it's clear in the record before I accept Mr. Stiller's motion?
You know, I mean, my preference would be that we state that. We really need an exact number. I heard some estimates, but we really should.
Yeah, because I heard 19, so
The true calculated number was 19.33 feet.
19.33 feet. Okay, we're gonna go with that. And then the variance B is still correct, right? That's the 1.5 feet is still accurate, correct, Jared?
That is, let's see, it's a complete deviation. That part, I don't know what that part is referring to, but it's a complete deviation because it's just the siding requirement. So a complete deviation to the siding requirement and 19.33 feet to the height.
All right, Mr. Stiller, you've heard Mr. Clement's clarification on what the proper variances should be. Are you incorporating those numbers in your motion that's pending?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have a modified motion from Mr. Stiller. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Gorence. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And chair votes in opposition. I believe the motion passes 4-1. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next case, which is item number 6. Case number 147 with an address of 3109 Campbell Street. Would the applicant please raise your hand to be promoted, as well as any parties who are here in support or opposition to this request for special exception to the height of the fence? Is Mr. Proctor
Yep,
here?
I am promoting Mr.
Okay.
Proctor.
Okay.
Angie Splitgerber again. A Mary Allison. And a Scout Demoso. And a Bill Wahlberg.
Okay.
Everyone has been
Promoted, okay.
promoted. No one else raised their hand.
Okay, let me just sort of go through these once I see everybody. Everyone who just joined us, please turn on your camera so I can see your faces. Thank you. That way I can find you. I think you can, Anna, you can unpromote Mr. Burnage for the last case. All right, Mr. Proctor, can you please state your full name for the record?
Lane Proctor.
Would you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you're the applicant today, correct, sir?
That's correct.
Okay. Ms. Splitberger, could you please state your name for the record?
Angela Splitgerber, Splittgetgerber.
And would you raise your hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you're here in opposition?
Yes.
Okay. Scout De Simono, I'm sure I am so sorry. Is that correct? No. Okay.
It's close enough.
Can you state your name, please?
It's Scout DeSimio.
DeSimio. All right. Would you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And are you here in support or opposition?
In support.
Okay. Bill Wahlberg, would you please state your name for the record?
Wahlberg.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. We lost you.
Bill Wahlberg. Sorry, my internet connection is a little funky this morning.
Okay. Can you raise your hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And are you here in support or opposition?
Support.
Okay. Mary Allison Joseph, would you please state your name, please?
Mary Allison Joseph.
Would you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And are you here in support or opposition?
In support.
Thank you. Have I called everybody? Okay. All right. Mr. Proctor, have you reviewed the staff report that is connected to the application today for the fence?
I have.
Okay. On the last 2 pages of that report, there are a listing of 10 administrative exhibits connected to the case. Do you have any objection to my admitting those for the board to consider this morning?
I do not.
Okay, administrative exhibits 1 through 10 will be admitted. Najma, is this your case? Okay, Najma, please present your PowerPoint, and then Mr. Proctor will have questions and for you and probably others on the phone, on the hearing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. And you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, my computer is moving a little slow, so let me know if there's any issues. Okay, before us we have docket item number 6, case number 147 for 2021 for 3109 Campbell Street. The existing zoning is R6. It is a request to approve a special exception to an existing fence height in a zoning district B3-2, which means they typically wouldn't need it, but the use is residential, and so they will need a special exception for clarity. Public engagement does not apply for this case. There are no prior cases on this parcel, and this is the part where it's moving slow, so bear with me.
We can see 2 slides at once, Najma.
That might be why. Try that again. Let's just move this one.
Now we just have 1.
I'm going to turn my camera off. That might move my computer a little faster.
Certainly.
Okay, it's not working. Give us 1 second. My apologies. Technical issues.
I think I'm gonna forget how to do these hearings in person if we ever go back together, but.
Yes.
I'm in the harbor of St. Kitts right now, so I could not be in person.
I see that, Mr. Ebbett, so I'm a little bit jealous. I don't think Najma's come back yet, so. We might just have to have her. Are you back? No.
Jared's going to progress through her PowerPoint, so just bear with us while we
he's
get
gonna
them
do
on
it for
his
her. I
computer.
gotcha.
Yeah, and then she'll
Okay.
give the presentation.
Okay.
In the meantime, another attendee has raised their hand. Would you like me to promote them?
Please, I can
Okay.
then. While we're waiting.
Oh.
Go ahead and promote Anna. I'll deal with that after the presentation and if that person needs to speak, so. Is Najma back with us? There she is. Okay, Najma, we can see this again. Okay, go ahead.
Next slide. The subject site is in the Midtown Plaza area of the city. Next slide. This is an aerial view of the subject site. These are images of the pre-existing fence from the side and the front setbacks of the home. Fences and walls per section 27-10-B of the chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances. Sorry, it's separate from the Zoning and Development Code. Requires that front or side yard allowed fence height on residentially used lots are only allowed up to 4 feet. The pre-existing fence and wall height on this residentially used lot is 6 feet. And so the special exception is in the amount of 2 feet. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Najma. Mr. Proctor, why do you want this extra 2 feet? What's the basis to support that?
The subject property, we've owned it since 1986, and it is always operated as a group home or a shelter. We built the fence to block the view of the front porch of the building from nearby neighbors who object to the guests of the facility being on the front porch, and that's where they go to smoke because there's not smoking allowed inside the building. And so we built the fence to keep the nearby neighbors from having to see the guests that they object to seeing on the front porch. We built it at 6 feet because since the area is zoned to B32, we didn't recognize that the residential fence limit applied to the facility.
So have you taken down the old fence and the photographs that we saw, Mr. Proctor? Is the newer fence what currently got put in?
That's correct.
Okay,
And
so
there was an existing fence on the south side of the building, or on the south side of the property, I should say. So we matched that fence line with the new fence. The new fence just runs along the front of the building.
okay. Oh, so you've added some fencing. Is that what you're saying? Okay, so the old fence is still there, but you've added fencing.
Correct.
Okay, now I understand. Okay, sorry, I didn't understand the photographs very well. And what, can you tell us the nature of the group home? Is that confidential? Can you explain to the board the nature of the residents?
No, it's not confidential. It is, it's a shelter and drop-in center for LGBTQIA youth, transition-aged youth, so 18 to 24-year-old youth who are experiencing homelessness.
Okay, that helps us understand. And how many people live in the group home at any one time? So we know the number of people that would be utilizing the porch area.
We have 20 beds in the building.
Okay. And are those predominantly filled at all times, or does that fluctuate, I assume?
It fluctuates with the weather the way it has been. We've been operating at capacity for some time now.
Okay. And is there any allegations of crime that has been alleged against any of the group home residents that the neighbors are concerned about?
There have been many allegations of crime and lots of stuff.
Okay, all right. And do you believe this fence assists with keeping that separated from the neighborhood?
We do. That's why we are trying to be good neighbors, as we always have for the 35 years that we've been there. We're doing what we can to appease our nearby our neighbors, and this was something that we came up with that we hoped would help with that.
Okay, all right. I want to hear from Ms. Splitt-Gerber, because I think everybody other than Angie were in support, if I remembered everybody else's position. So let me hear from Angie. Let's hear why you're opposed to this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to offer an exhibit that consists of one flyer and 7 photographs, if I may have permission to enter that into evidence.
Sure, let's mark that exhibit 11, I believe. And then Ms. Splitt-Gerber, you'll need to provide a copy of that to Najma so it becomes a part of our file. So I'll admit that all as one collective exhibit called exhibit 11. You may share your screen.
Thank you. All right. Can you see this screen? It should be like a navy blue and kind of chartreuse document. Okay, perfect. So generally speaking, I'll just say up front, the neighbors have experienced problems with this property, and we are supportive of fencing of some sort. We would even be supportive of a 6-foot variance. What we are not supportive of is a stockade fence along the streetscape. We would like to see something that has transparency, some sort of, wrought iron look fence that allows for things to be seen. So just to give you an idea of what's going on, this property has successfully operated as a hospice home for decades. However, in 2019, it started serving homeless youth, and we began to experience some issues. Our issues aren't necessarily with the youth or even the services that are being offered, but we do think that there is a need for this facility to be managing itself better. So the neighbors have had several incidents and several concerns, and we had a meeting with Save Inc. on October 11th of 2021. I think this fence went up on the 14th. I think a fence was briefly mentioned during the meeting, but we didn't talk in detail, or we could have had this discussion before it was installed. The issue is not an objection from neighbors to smoking on the porch. It is in regard to things that are happening in the outside area of the property that are problematic and disturbing to the neighbors in the neighborhood. And the stockade fence basically just, as he said, it blocks our view, it hides it. So now we have a situation where we know that there can be problems on that property and neighbors are having to walk by it and they're not able to see what's on the other side of that fence. We also experienced substantial first responder responses to this property, and they're now walking up to an opaque fence that they cannot see through. To give you an idea of the complaints that the neighbors had, and I will say there are a lot of things that center around the activity on the porch. Obviously, we understand smoking's illegal activity. We have no problem with people smoking on the exterior of the property. But what happens is that when the individuals are doing that, they're actually getting into loud arguments, they're getting into fights. There's a substantial problem that we've witnessed with people sleeping on the porch and on the front steps of the property at all hours of the day and night. There is public urination, there is suspected drug activity. Neighbors have been chased up and down the street. A neighbor has had her car broken into. So I wanted to so the purpose of this first exhibit is just to show this timeline, 2019, that was when the change began. Next, the first photograph is just the current condition of the property. You've seen that. The second photograph, the current condition of the property. Both of these were taken on January 6th of this year. This is a rock that was thrown at the window of the house across the street just this Sunday on January 23rd by one of the residents of the property. This is just an example of some of the incidents that have happened. This is toward the rear of the property. It occurred on January 12th, I believe. Here's an example of the first responders. You can see the stockade fence. They can't see what's going on. It appears that this person strapped to this bench is in a bag of some sort. It is from December 16th of last year. We have, and this one got really pixelated on me, but you can see there's a little gray spot here. That's actually an individual covered with a blanket during the daytime on October 22nd, asleep on the front stairs of the property or passed out. Here is an exhibit from August 8th of last year. There are 3 individuals sleeping on this porch. The tree kind of blocks it a little bit. Chairwoman, this also sort of gives you an idea of what the property looked like before that fence was installed. So we want to have a good quality facility in our neighborhood. But the issues that the neighbors have with this property are not solved by an opaque fence that we can't see through, that first responders can't see through. It also is adverse to the character of the neighborhood. I believe that the requirements are that it will not adversely affect the appearance of the neighborhood or adjacent properties. The stockade fence does do that. Usually when we see variances in Hyde Park, we've never consented to a 6-foot stockade fence in the front of a property. However, we have frequently consented to and encouraged a variance for a 6-foot transparent fence of some sort. In addition, it's just not compatible with the historic character of our neighborhood. And so in sum, we would just ask that you ask them to modify the material of the fence. And if that happens, we are completely comfortable with a 6-foot variance. If they're not willing to do that, then we would ask that the fence be 4 feet in nature. This isn't about hiding what's going on at this property. It's about operating this property in a way that you don't need to hide. And I'll just also point out, since I won't have the opportunity, I think that every other person in favor of this is either an employee or a board member of this organization. I may be wrong, but I would just ask that you identify their interest in it if they do offer testimony. Thank you.
Ms. Gerber, before you go, and I can still ask you questions even after you go, but I have a question.
Yes.
What is directly across the street from this view that you're showing us? What kind of structures are directly across the street from where
this is a single family home that's directly across the street? And you can tell some of the photos have come from that homeowner, and they are taking them from a position of elevated. They have they sort of have a 2-story porch like you see on the Saving property as well. So they're coming from a 2nd-story porch.
And they do not want a 6-foot fence at this location.
They are comfortable with the 6-foot fence. They are not comfortable with the opacity.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure who took this photograph. Okay, all right.
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, before I let Gerber step back, any other questions for her? All right, Mr. Proctor, I'll hear from the folks that are here in support. I'm just going to start. Ms. Joseph, why don't we start with you?
Sure. My name is Mary Allison Joseph. I'm the coordinator of church and community affairs at Trinity United Methodist Church at 620 East Armour. We've been a presence in the Hyde Park neighborhood for over 100 years. I'm here in support of Pride Haven's variance request for their property. This property has been used to care for the Kansas City community for 35 years, as long as I've been alive on this earth. It began in the mid-'80s, as you already heard, as a 24-hour hospice for folks with HIV and AIDS, and now it's an overnight shelter for youth. As you've heard, it's primarily LGBTQIA+ youth, and as such, Pride Haven is saving the lives of some of the most vulnerable members of Kansas City's houseless community. LGBTQIA+ youth experience higher rates of suicide, and in shelters and on the streets, LGBTQIA+ youth may endure traumatic experiences such as harassment, stigmatization, and abuse from peers and shelter staff as a result of their sexual orientation and/or gender identity or expression. LGBTQIA+ youth may find it difficult to find housing and may even be asked to leave shelters after revealing their sexual or gender identity. Pride Haven is providing vital supportive services and meeting the most basic needs of Kansas City's LGBTQIA+ youth. As a member of the Hyde Park neighborhood community who is deeply concerned about Kansas City's LGBTQIA+ youth, I ask this board to approve Pride Haven's request for variance. And also the minister of our church, Reverend Tex Sample, is here and having technical difficulties raising his hand and giving public comment. So in case he is not able to do that, I just want to share a few things that Reverend Tex Sample wanted to share about Blaine Proctor. Blaine Proctor has been the treasurer at Trinity United Methodist Church. He's also been a church school teacher, and he is our delegate to the state meeting of our church. So he's our annual conference representative. We have complete confidence in his running of Pride Haven, as the church he's a member of our church and we've known him for many, many years. Hopefully Tex Sample can get on and give his own testimony, but in case he's not able to do that, he wanted to speak to.
Miss Just, I want to interrupt you. He's here, so I don't really want to have any more hearsay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. All right, Mr. Wahlberg, let's hear from you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just here to be a face and support, but I did want to chime in on Ms. Split Gerber's commentary and just note that this is just about the height of a fence, and that most of the quote unquote evidence that she admitted into evidence is really not relevant to the height of the fence. So I just wanted the committee to be aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand that, but thank you. All right. Scout, I'm sorry. Once again, I'm going to say your last name wrong. So what is your position?
Thank you. I'm the program manager of this program. As you could see on that flyer, I wrote it. I did want to note briefly, it did say the efforts that we were making at that time to improve the relationship with the community was to add a fence to the front yard. I've been a social worker for 10 years. Obviously, I'm here to answer any questions that you have about the program, and I'm happy to do that. We had been receiving a lot of complaints about noise, which is understandable. Some of our kids get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work. And so if they're sitting out there and drinking their coffee or something, being loud, the fence was in effort to reduce the noise as well as to protect their confidentiality. As a social worker, I tend to think of the value and the dignity of people, and having their identities be kept a secret. There have been instances in the past where folks in the community have put misleading photographs on Facebook making allegations about our youth that just were not true. So I really feel like this fence is important to protect their dignity and their privacy. Homelessness is an incredibly personal experience, and I think that we have a responsibility to keep their identities safe. So.
All right, Mr. Sample, could you state your name, please?
Yes, Tex, that's my real name. Pardon me, Sample, S-A-M-P-L-E.
Okay, would you raise your right hand to take the oath with me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and what would you like us to hear?
Well, on a number of occasions, Blaine Proctor has been personally attacked, and I just wanted to be here, first of all, as a character witness for him, and I believe that Ms. Joseph has already spoken to the things I wanted to say on that score. I'm very much aware, in terms of being in close conversation with Mr. Proctor throughout these last weeks, that a great range of claims have been made about this facility. I don't remember very many of them being true, to my knowledge, and certainly denied by Mr. Proctor. So I'm here to support the institution, the facility, and I would be glad to answer any question relevant to issues of character and so forth.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Proctor, let me ask you some questions, okay? If you've been listening in, I've been on this board a long time, since 1996. And so I've heard a number of cases asking for variances to the height of the fence. It is a somewhat controversial topic. I will be very blunt, okay? And people want to block things out, but we at the board are very concerned about the basis for that. And on very limited occasions, I can think of less than 5, have we ever considered putting a fence of this height in a front yard where it's blocking everything. Ms. Splitberger makes the point that this board is always concerned about. She's before us often, so she understands what we're looking at and our concerns. This idea that you can't see through it. So I ask you specifically, is there crime in the area? The few times we've allowed opaque fences, and I actually can think of only one situation where it's been opaque that we've allowed, in a situation where the crime was so rampant in that neighborhood that it literally was protecting the folks that lived in the home. A lot of times it's a corner lot or something, and so there is a difference of what, the height of the fence is. So why does a wrought iron fence not solve the issue that you have?
As I stated before, we were trying, the neighbors across the street have several times brought it to Scout's attention that there are people out on the front porch smoking, that there are people out hanging out on the front porch. And it was really an attempt to try to keep what's on the front porch from having to be viewed by our neighbors, since they seem to object or be offended by what they're seeing.
Okay, and it seems to me as if those neighbors didn't want that necessarily where you put the new fence. It sounds like where you had the old existing fence, that might have been a different group of people, but it seems like
there was never a fence before that.
Yeah, so that's why I asked the question, who lived across the street from where the new fence was? That was interesting to me, because your point was, I heard what you said about the front porch. So are you opposed to putting a wrought iron fence where you put the new fence?
No. No.
Okay, and that I appreciate your honesty, because this board, if someone can see through a fence, it still has the height to it if it prevents people from coming in and out, as that's what a fence is in some circumstances. I want the board to hear your honest answer to that so they can make a decision. We generally don't like tall fences in the front yard that you can't see through. because there are security issues about personnel from the police department, the fire department, not being able to see where they need to get to address the issues that they need to from a public safety standpoint. But again, I'm one board member. I've just been on this board a very long time. So, and I run the meeting, so you hear from me first. But all right, let me see other board members. Do you have questions?
I do, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Proctor, if it were to go to a wrought iron fence, what objective would that be achieving? If you're hearing that the neighbors want a visual barrier, and then you go through the time and expense and install a wrought iron fence, has anything been achieved?
It wouldn't achieve what our objective was. I'm just saying that if we need to put a wrought iron fence up, then we will do that. I don't object to that, but I don't think that it achieves the objective that we initially had.
Mr. Proctor, have you had a meeting with all of the surrounding neighbors actually to discuss this? I mean, it sounds like some of this wasn't, it sounds like you did have some meeting, but I get the sense that it wasn't fully vetted in that meeting.
We did not meet to specifically discuss the fence. We met to discuss the challenges that they have with our facility.
So would it benefit you to meet with your neighbors again to see if there is some sort of solution to this fencing? I always find, again, the benefit of being on this board for a long time, I find neighbors sometimes work things out, and then this board has a lesser decision to reach. So, Mr. Proctor, do you think that would be beneficial before this board would make a ruling?
We can meet with them again.
Okay. Ms. Gerber, do you believe that that would be helpful?
I would love to have better communication with Save Inc. I've just recently been elected president of the neighborhood. I know that communication in the past has been kind of fraught with a lot of emotion on both sides. And it sounds to me, we didn't discuss this during the meeting that we had, did not. And it sounds to me like the concerns of the neighbors and what Save Inc. is hearing are kind of two ships passing in the night at this point. The neighbors, they're not concerned that they just see people on the porch. They're concerned about the disturbances. They're concerned about seeing people sleeping, on the steps and on the porch when, they should have shelter somewhere in the property or elsewhere during the day if they're not being, meeting their case manager or what have you. So it's not about like everything is going to magically go away if we can't see it. It's more about let's get to the root of the issue. If kids are out there drinking coffee or smoking, that's not the problem. Seeing them is not the problem. So perhaps another conversation to convey that would be helpful.
So again, it seems to me a continuance of this case before this board would rule so that the parties could further meet and see if there is a compromise before this board rules makes some sense. I think a little more of what does your neighbor think needs to be considered. So Mr. Proctor, is that something you would consider? I think he said yes. I'm sorry. Did you say yes? Sorry.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Then I thought I was muted or something.
Okay. All right. So our next board meeting is in February, and it's early because we have moved this meeting back. Our next meeting is February 8th. Could you all have a meeting and have a decision to come back on that date, or do we need to give you more time into March?
Can we go into March, please?
Okay. All right. All right, board members, I think we have a request. Do I have a motion to continue this matter until February 8th?
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Kelleher. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Stiller. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes with the motion. This matter is continued to March 8th. Thank you, folks, and I hope you're successful and you come back with maybe even a dismissal of this case. We'll see. I mean, if you change the height of the fence, we'll see. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Let's take one more case, and then I want to take a brief just a rest break, and then we'll come back. I'm hoping to finish these cases close to the midday so we don't have to take a lunch break if everybody is agreeing if we can do that. So let's call case number 7, docket number 7, case number 148. Would the applicant and any interested parties please raise their hand to be promoted?
I am promoting a Jason Waldron. There's also a Stan Parks and a Nick Statham.
Thank you. If you could turn on your cameras and microphones, please. Okay.
Yeah, hi. Good morning. Sorry, I was rejoining as a panelist. I think I missed our queue here. So
that's okay. All right, Mr. Waldron, could you state your name, please?
Yeah, no problem. My name is Jason Waldron. I'm the Transportation Director in Public Works and also the project manager for the Casey Streetcar Main Street Extension Project. With me today is Stan Parks and Nick Statham, members of the project team.
Okay, and gentlemen, Mr. Parks, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Stan Parks.
And Mr. Statham, would you state your full name, please? He's still muted. Mr. Statham, can you turn on your microphone? There he is.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, and I can see you. Can you state?
Yeah, Nicholas Statham.
Okay, gentlemen, would you all three please raise your right hands to take the oath with me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay. Mr. Waldron, have you reviewed the staff report that's been created as it relates to this request?
We have.
Okay. And do you have any objection to my admitting the administrative exhibits that number 1 through 9 found on the second page of the report?
No objection.
Exhibits 1 through 9 will be admitted. Najma, this is your case, I believe. Would you please present, and then we'll hear from Mr. Waldron and the other gentleman.
Najma, let me pause real quick. Sorry, there's a lot of feedback, and I'm just worried about the court reporter. So if the 3 gentlemen we just promoted, if you can mute yourselves until we ask you for public testimony.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, go ahead, Najma.
Okay. Before us, we have docket item number 7, case for 2021-148. The location is 25 West 38th Street in R6 zoning district. Is a request for the variance of the rear yard setback requirements. The subject site is located in the Midtown Plaza area of the city. And this is an aerial view of the subject site. These lots, similar to another case, is in the process of being combined at the county level, and it's just taking a little bit of time for the county to get to lot combinations for this year. This is the site plan with the variance shown to the rear yard setback in the red there. Per 88-110-06-B, for lot and building standards, the required rear yard setback is 25% of the depth, which is 21.9 feet on this property. The proposed rear yard setback is, this is incorrect, and I'm not sure why. The proposed rear yard setback is 21.9 plus 10 feet, so 31.9 feet, with a variance in the amount of 11.9 feet. My apologies. That concludes my presentation.
So Najma, the variance request of 11.9 is correct.
That part is correct. Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Najma. Mr. Waldron, let's hear from you. I understand that these are 3 vacant lots that are owned by the city and you're wanting to put some sort of maintenance structure at this location. Is that right?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. That's exactly right. This site was purchased using the funding from our $352 million Main Street Extension project. And we've been working with neighbors and we continue to do so. We've as recently as last Friday, preferring the front setbacks rather than the rear setbacks to be more consistent and more context sensitive to the neighborhood. Probably if you want to get in the details, it'd probably be best for me to hand it over to Stan Parks if you have any additional questions. Stan, if you could take over and fill in any gaps I left.
Sure. So the parcels were purchased with federal funds as part of the streetcar extension, primarily initially to serve as a site for one of the traction power substations that are needed on the extension. The funding kind of limits what the property can be used for. It has to be related to the streetcar project. There was also Streetcar Authority identified a need for light maintenance building towards the south terminus of the extension. So we've added the scope of a building that would house replacement parts for quick repairs on the shelters or the cars themselves, some light maintenance abilities.
And Mr. Parks, is there a way to place this building such that you would be able to comply with all the setbacks requirements?
We had looked at several options. The functional needs of the facility included some office space, a layover break room for operators that were off shift, but also capacity for parking for 2 vehicles. Not having that additional 11.9 feet would make the function of the building much less desirable. And we're also trying to accommodate the substation and using the building to help kind of screen that from at least some of the adjacent properties.
Okay. All right, board members, do you have questions for the applicants? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Stiller?
in case number 148, I would move that the board grant the requested variances in accordance with staff report and site plan.
I have a motion from Mr. Stiller. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Kelleher. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes with the motion. The request has been granted. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a brief 5-minute break and then we'll be back to hear the rest of the cases. Before we go, is it okay if we just continue and not take a lunch break, since I think we can probably finish this in the next hour to hour and a half, probably? Okay, all right, that's what our plan will be. We'll be right back.
Are we coming back, Teresa?
Yes, if everybody's here. Again, I'm trying to get us through this. I don't, we have, looks like we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more cases, and I'm hoping to finish up within about an hour to an hour and a half, so everybody can have their afternoons more uncluttered if everybody's available. Of course, that's subject to everybody having public testimony, so we'll see. We'll stay longer if we need to, but I'm thinking just based on experience, we might be able to get through this in an hour and a half, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm waiting for Tom and Mike and Tom to come back. I see Sarah, I see Brett. We have to have Brett. I see Anna.
It's 85 degrees here, Teresa. I know it makes you mad.
Okay, just don't even. I'm in my like big sweater today because it's cold. And
Did you put a fake background on it? It's instead of your
I
real
know.
life paradise one.
Right. I think I'm gonna start putting palm trees behind me, but I don't think it's very professional, so I probably won't do it. Okay. All right. There's Tom and Mike. Nope, I still miss Stiller. He's not back yet. Oh, there he is. And he does have his fake background behind him. So there I go. There we go. So, all right. Do we have everybody else? Staff all back? Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next case, which is docket item 8, case number 144. The address is 3525 Ashland Ridge Road. With the applicant and all persons who are either in support or opposition to this request for variance, please raise your hand to be promoted.
I am promoting a Shane and a John Mann.
Okay.
John, you have to accept the promotion. There we go. They're both connected. No one else is raising their hand.
All right. And Shane and John, if you would both please turn on your microphones and cameras, please. Yes. All right. Shane, can you tell me your full name, please?
My name is Shane Fowler.
I'm sorry. Can you say the last name again?
Sure, Fowler. It's F as in Frank, O-W-L-E-R.
Thank you. Sorry, the echo sometimes is really bad. I apologize.
No problem.
I do that so that the court reporter can get a clear understanding. Okay. And Mr. Mann, can you state your name, please?
Hi, this is John Mann.
Okay. Okay, gentlemen, would you both please raise your right hands to take the oath with us? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Mr. Mann, you're the applicant in this case. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay. And Mr. Fowler, what is your interest in this case?
I'm part of the design team.
Okay. So you're with Mr. Mann. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. Gentlemen, have you reviewed the staff report that has been created as it relates to this request for variance? And if so, on the 3rd page of that report, there's a listing of 9 administrative exhibits. You will see those. You would have seen those above Mr. Barnes's signature. Do you have any objection to my admitting those 9 administrative exhibits so the board can consider your request today? No? All right.
I do not. Yeah.
Okay. Then administrative exhibits 1 through 9 will be admitted. And Matt, I don't know that I've seen you present before, so welcome to the board. Let's hear your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is my first time, so bear with me as I share my screen here.
We'll do it.
Are you able to see that?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Today's case is docket number 8, case number 2021-00144, located at 3525 Ashland Ridge Road. The applicant is seeking approval of a variance of the height requirements for an accessory building. The site is in the Blue Ridge neighborhood, just kind of north of the stadiums. Here's a little closer view. There's the subject property highlighted in yellow, and you can see Kaufman and Arrowhead to the south. And just a further zoomed in of the property. The house is on the southern portion, and to the north, you can kind of see the, I believe, old foundation of a previous building, and that is the site of the proposed accessory structure. Here's just a view of the property from the street, where that mound is towards the back is the site of the structure proposed. And then here's just the other side showing the house. Overall site plan, the structure is there by the blue bracket. Here's the proposed structure. It is 19 feet 10 inches, which would require a variance of 3 feet 10 inches. I believe the structure is pre-made, so the applicant is requesting the variance due to the constraints of the prefab type of building. So like I said, the maximum height that is allowed is 16 feet. The proposed height is 19 feet 10 inches with a variance of 3 feet 10 inches.
Thank you, Matt. All right, Mr. Fowler, since you're the designer, I'm going to ask questions of you, and Mr. Mann can answer if you cannot. Why should we grant this variance?
Madam Chair, originally when the property was purchased, there was an additional single family residence where you saw that has been demoed. The existing foundation remains. They have also removed that. At the time that it was dismantled because it was in a state of disrepair, the idea was to repurpose the storage that was previously there with a Quonset hut style building. And so, as Matt mentioned, it is a kit and the height is predetermined from the engineering company. So that there's already a curb cut and driveway that exists there. So Mr. Mann decided, in order to control costs, the pre-engineered building and putting it in the previous location of the preliminary structure would be most advantageous for them. It would be storage for their collector of some of the finer things like classic cars, motorcycles, and other recreation vehicles. And so they're hoping to recapture some of the storage that was previously on site.
So is this, but there were two residential homes on this one lot, or one?
Yes, previously there was, that's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, and that was approved and pre-existing, I take it?
That's correct. That's the way it was when it was purchased.
Okay. And there's about 2 acres on this lot, is that correct?
Without having the documentation in front of me, I believe that is correct. It is a fairly large site.
Okay, Mr. Mann is shaking his head yes, I think, when I add to that question. So is this structure, we had another structure, kind of not the same, but some similar issues. So I guess what we want to know is how visible is this to the rest of the neighborhood? Are there other structures similar to this in the neighborhood? And does the existing home have its own attached garage?
And John, I might let you answer that one.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer that. So the existing home does have an attached garage. Now, it's a 5-bedroom house with a 2-car garage. So it's pretty small. And when we demoed the old home that was used primarily for storage, and it had a garage as well, the plan was to put in place a larger garage to store all of our vehicles, everything of that nature. I own a construction company. I have 4 trucks myself, and parking them outside leaves them available to theft and damage and everything. So that was the original intent. It does, the proposed structure sits about 180 feet off of the street. We are on 1.97 acres, I believe. The neighbor closest to the property is on a full 2 acres. And then next to him is another full 2 acres. There's no home directly across from the proposed structure whatsoever, and nor can there be one built over there. So it does not obstruct the view. And as a state of record, the existing house that is on the property is 39 feet tall from the ground height. So it is much larger than the proposed structure that we're asking for.
Okay, so I have to ask a question based on your comments. You said you have a construction company and you store 4, did you say 4 work vehicles at this location?
Well, I've been in the classic cars my entire life. I own myself 5 vehicles and 4 motorcycles. So it's, I use them for daily transportation, but it's not necessarily company equipment. It's personal as well.
Okay, so, okay, so, and that's what I want to understand, because I don't think we can have storage of business equipment on a residential property like this. So are these vehicles that have the name of your construction company on the side of them? Describe that to us.
No, ma'am. They're all titled to me personally. 3 of the 4 are from 1975 and earlier. Like I said, I'm a car enthusiast. I've built hot rods and vintage vehicles my entire life, and I personally own these and use them. They're registered to me. There's no company advertisements. It's just I need a spot to put them, because right now they sit outside. It doesn't make the area look good, and they need, safe storage indoors so they don't, deteriorate any further.
Okay, so it is not your intent to use this proposed structure to store any equipment, vehicles, or product that you would use in your construction business?
No, ma'am. What I meant by that is I'm a hobbyist, and my line of work, along with my personal interests from my entire life, does require tooling and everything like that. But it's all for me and my own interest. I just started my company this year, but I've owned these vehicles longer than that, and all the equipment. This is purely a storage accessory building.
And what is the nature of your construction business? What do you construct?
General construction services. I also contract for a general contractor here in Kansas City for commercial construction that I do not own, but I am an employee of, or rather a contractor.
Okay. Mr. Gorentz, you had a question?
I have a question for Madam Chair, for John. You mentioned 4 trucks that you use in your business. Are they going to be parked there? They don't have your logo on the side or anything?
No, they don't. And I may have misspoken. I own 4 trucks, not purely for the business. I was just saying I'm a vehicle enthusiast. I also have classic cars as well, and multiple motorcycles that clearly have nothing to do with a business. I probably misspoke to that matter. I mean, they're all registered to me personally, and they're not business oriented, nor are they advertised.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions from board members? Hearing no questions, I'd entertain a motion on this case. Do I have a motion, or do I need further questions answered by anyone?
Madam Chair, I'll have a motion here. So in case number 144, I recommend the applicant be granted the request in accordance with site plan and staff report.
I have a motion from Mr. Ebbets. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Kelleher. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes with the motion. The request has been granted. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's call docket items 9 and 10, which are case numbers 149 and 150. with the addresses of 3300 Cleveland Avenue and 3306 Cleveland Avenue. Would the applicants please raise their hand to be promoted?
I am promoting Chris Collins.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm gonna not necessarily recuse, but I just need to step out of this.
We have plenty of board members if you need to step away. Okay, so those of you online, you know who's up.
No one else has raised their hand besides Chris Collins. He is
Okay.
connected.
All right. Mr. Collins, can you turn on your microphone, please?
Sure.
Okay. Sir, can you, thank you for your patience. I know you joined us a little bit earlier today. Can you state your full name, please?
Chris Collins.
And would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Johnny Strauss is also back.
Oh,
Sorry
he's
to
back.
interrupt.
Okay. Oh, nope. Thank you. We'll get Mr. Strauss too, because he was here the first time.
I was hoping he hadn't abandoned.
He's here. Mr. Strauss, as soon as you can turn on your microphone and camera. Mr. Strauss, can you see me?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you state your name, please?
It's John L. Strauss.
And would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen, we briefly talked to you at the beginning of this hearing, but now we're going to actually hear your cases. There are two cases that are pending. I understand one we're going to consider dismissing, and on the other one, we'll take the evidence and address your issues. But have you reviewed both of the staff reports that are connected to those matters? The staff reports, and specifically, do you have any objection to the admission of the 10 administrative exhibits that are attached with this application?
I have not reviewed those.
Okay, so those administrative exhibits, Mr. Strauss, are they're the zoning code and ordinances that are applicable. It's the staff report that's been created. It's your submittal that sent to the city and a PowerPoint presentation created so that the staff person can tell us what your request is. Any objection to those being admitted?
No objections.
Okay, I'm going to admit exhibits 1 through 10. Najma, this is your case, correct? Let's hear from you on the PowerPoint, and then we'll have questions for Mr. Strauss and Mr. Collins.
Okay. Right on my screen now. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Before us, we have docket item number 9, case 2021-149 for 3300 Cleveland. It is an R2.5. It's a request for a special exception to allow for a 6-foot tall chain link fence with slats along East 33rd Street and along Cleveland Avenue.
Anything else, Najma?
Yes, I'm sorry, it's loading. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
And
stop sharing your video. See if that helps.
And Najma, if you can't get it to go, the board has the staff report. No, there she goes. Okay. Oh, Jared's going to do it. Okay.
The subject site is in the heart of the city. This is the overhead view, the aerial view of 3300 Cleveland and 3306 Cleveland. This is an image of the proposed chain link fence with privacy slats. As previously stated, per chapter 27 of our code, fences and walls in the front or side yard are only allowed at a height of 4 feet. The proposed fence is 6 feet, and they're asking for a special exception in the amount of 2 feet. And that concludes my presentation. I will also say that they have another case on the docket that is very similar, so you all will see that same presentation again, unless you wave to see it, Madam Chair.
Okay, let me understand. I thought that these two cases were to be combined. They're the same lot. Am I confused?
Yes. No, ma'am. These two cases are the same, and then the next case after.
Oh, they're
on number 12.
Oh, they're here. Oh, they're on number 12.
16,
Okay.
57, yeah.
Okay, so then, okay, all right, let's deal with these two. And gentlemen, I'm not going to dismiss you and take 11 before you. I'm going to do 12 next. So just, we're going to finish all these. So we're doing this more efficiently. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right. So Mr. Strauss, are you taking the lead or Mr. Collins? Who is?
I'm with right away and Mr. Collins is with engineering, so either
Okay.
or.
So just explain to us why you need this height, fence height exemption. I think I can understand it, but let's let the board understand. So what is behind this fence?
We have recently purchased these two lots from Kansas City Land Bank. We will be erecting a what's called a regulator station where we have above piping where we're regulating pressures for different mains. This is part of a large project that we have going on throughout the city. It's 20-inch main pipe that we will be installing. So we have a similar one that we went to the board, very similar to this at 7121 Chestnut. So we are asking for the same variance. Basically, it's safety reasons to keep people out of the property.
And that one at 71 Chestnut, if I remember, there was a neighbor who had some concerns at the end when we heard that case, correct?
That is correct. And they requested that we push the fence back. I think it was maybe 10 feet, so it didn't obstruct their view, and we complied.
Right, okay. All right, board members, do you understand this request? This is Spire, correct? This is the energy company, correct? Okay.
Natural gas provider.
Natural gas, that's what I wanted to make sure what it is. It's natural gas, okay.
Yes.
All right, does anyone have questions for Mr. Collins or Mr. Strauss on this proposed request for variance? Hearing none, I'd.
Question.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Any neighbor concerns from this area for this proposal?
Mr. Strauss,
I haven't heard of any, and I don't think the city forwarded us anything about any opposition.
And there's no one else on line today, I think. Najma, did you hear any?
I received phone calls, one that sounded like an opposition, but I was unable to get a hold of them prior to the meeting, and the others were fine or in support.
Okay. And of course, you sent notices out to all of the the neighbors that within the distance that were required, right, of today's hearing?
Correct.
Okay.
For all cases.
So Chairman Otto, I've got a motion if no one else has any concerns.
That would be fine. I don't think I'm hearing any other questions. Go ahead.
So in case number 149, I recommend the board grant the request in accordance with the site plan and staff reports submitted.
I have a motion for Mr. Ebbets. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Banuki. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes with the motion. This matter has been granted. Do I have a motion to dismiss item number 10 based on presentation that this is unnecessary?
So moved.
I have a motion for Mr. Kelleher. Do I have a second?
Second.
The second for Mr. Banuki. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes with the motion. Docket item 10 is dismissed. I'm going to gently skip over 11 and come back to that, but let's call docket item number 12, case number 151 with an address of 1657 Oakley Avenue. Mr. Strauss and Mr. Collins, you're here on this matter as well. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're still both under oath. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Any objections to the admission of the administrative exhibits that are attached to this request, that number 1 through 10, Mr. Strauss or Mr. Collins?
No objections.
Okay, administrative exhibits 1 through 10 would be admitted. Najma, do you need to show us your presentation, or can you describe this to us since you're having computer difficulties?
It's up to you all. It's the same exact concept. The location, however, is at 1657 Oakley, same zoning district in R2.5. The request for the 6-foot tall chain link fence with privacy slats is the same, as well as the design.
Okay, and thank you, Najma. Mr. Strauss or Mr. Collins, so there's a lot of blank land around this location as well, correct?
That is correct. The property to the east of it is vacant land. We are in with a lease with that property owner for what we call a storage, material storage lease. We're using that as a staging area for piping and equipment.
And have you spoken with the folks that live on 66th Terrace, which would be, I guess, the closest homes perhaps to this proposed fencing?
I have not made any contact with any property owners.
Okay, have you received any complaints or concerns about where this is going to be located?
I have not received any complaints.
Okay, Najma, has the city received any complaints or concerns?
Not for this location, no.
Okay. Board members have any further questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, case number 152, I recommend approval according to staff's report and site plan.
I think it's case 151.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, all right. I have a motion with that correction from Mr. Kelleher. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Banuki. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes with the motion. The request has been granted. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a good day.
You too. Let's go back to docket item number 11. Case number 152. The address is 12303 Oak Street. Would the applicant and any persons in opposition or support please raise their hand to be promoted?
Chuck Goins, you're being promoted, and Douglas McMillan.
Mr. Gowan, is it Mr. Gowans?
Gowans, yes.
Gowans, Mr. Gowans, can you hear me? Okay. Sir, can you state your name, please?
Charles Gowans, I go by Chuck nickname.
Okay. Mr. Gowans, would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you are the applicant in this case?
I am.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. McMillan, can you state your name for the record, please?
Madam Chair, you know my name very well, but for everybody else, my name is Douglas McMillan.
Okay. And Mr. McMillan, are you here in support or opposition of this matter?
I'm here in support.
Okay, all right. I'm going to swear you in case you wish to speak. Would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. McMillan and I have shared many cases together. So anyway, good to see you today, sir. All right, Mr. Gowan, have you had a chance to review the staff report that is connected with your request?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have.
Okay, on page 4 of that report, there are a listing of 9 administrative exhibits that are connected to your case. Do you have any objection to my admitting those for the board to consider this morning?
I do not.
Okay, exhibits 1 through 9 will be admitted. And Jared, are you going to do this presentation?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead when you're ready.
All right. Over here. Okay, before us, we have docket item number 11. This is case number CD-BZA-2021-00152, located at 12303 Oak Street, zoning district R-6. The applicant in this case is seeking approval of a variance to the side and rear setbacks, as well as deck siding requirements. So this is the location of the subject site. It's within the boundaries of the Red Bridge area plan. This is a closer view. It is on Oak Street, just north of Cherry. within the Somerset Hills subdivision. This is the proposed site layout for the proposed deck. You can see the home there as well as the deck at the rear. On this, note the distances. There's 2 side setback variances requested, that being the 2 foot and 11 inches from one side and 4.5 feet from one side. And then the rear yard setback variance, as well as a small deck on the side yard, which does not encroach in the setback, but it's just not allowed to be in the side yard, therefore siding requirement variance as well. There is a previously approved variance on this site from a while ago, I believe when the home was originally built, for a smaller deck for the setback requirements. So this is variance A's case factors, a variance of 15.3 feet to the rear yard setback. A substantial change to the character of the neighborhood is not anticipated. A change in design would be necessary to obviate the difficulty. So these are variances B and C, the side yard setbacks. So it'd be a variance of 4.1 and 2.5 feet to the east and west side yard setbacks respectively. Substantial change is not anticipated. A change in design would be necessary to obviate the difficulty. And variance D is a complete deviation. Once again, the change is not anticipated. And a change would be necessary to obviate the difficulty. With that, I will conclude my presentation.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gowan, why do you believe the board should grant the requested variances?
We need to replace the existing deck that is on the lower level of the house. It is rotting and the posts are sliding down the hill due to the grade of the land and the time that it's been installed. We'd like to build a newer deck and we'd like to build that on the main level of the house, which is really 1 floor above the existing deck. We want to do that because a couple of reasons. My wife has had knee replacement surgery and the issues are getting down 20-something steps from the main level of the house to get to the old deck. We also host a number of charity activities for her church, All Souls, where we have, a number of elderly participants in those activities, their dinners and such, and there are a number of elderly people with wheelchairs. So we would like a larger deck to accommodate on that level to accommodate those physical needs. The existing deck, when you put chairs and table, is only 8 foot deep. You can't get around once people are sitting, so it's just not very usable in its current state.
Okay, and you have a pie-shaped lot. What is to the rear of your home?
Mr. McMillan.
Mr. McMillan, who's waving at us. Okay, all right. Well, it sounds like he's in support. Is that true, Mr. McMillan? This proposed structure that he's wanting to build is something you're in agreement with?
Absolutely.
Okay, because it is a raised structure, and so it is more visible. So that's good that you've sought and obtained his support. Okay.
His and both my neighbors on the either side.
Okay. All right. And so we have a photograph or a rendering of what this is supposed to look like in the staff report. If board members have had a chance to see that, I don't know if you can see that or not. So there'll be a spiral staircase that comes down to get to the ground in the back. Is that correct, Mr. Gowan?
Correct.
Okay. Obviously, your wife won't be traversing those.
No, she would like a dog sometime in the future, and that's so she can let the dog out at that level and not have to go downstairs to let him out.
Yeah. All right, board members, do you have questions? Okay, Mr. McMillan, any other questions or comments you'd like us to hear? Okay.
Only to say hi to you and to my former colleague, Sarah Baxter, who I hope is doing well.
Well, I was going to say, now are you retired now? Is that right?
I am retired.
Okay, well, happy retirement. I have a few more years to go to do that, but anyway, all right.
He reminded me when I had him sign for an affidavit for approval to make sure my neighbors bless this man. He reminded me that he had a working relationship with you.
Yeah,
I
he
said, well,
does.
if you'd like to sit in, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, I guess you're lucky that he approved, right? He
I
disagree.
considering that very
All right.
lucky.
All right. Well, it's always good to see that neighbors get along. That's what I have to say on this board. I always ask, like I said, what does your neighbor think? That's really important to us in a lot of cases. So anyway, gentlemen, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion on this case.
Madam Chair, in case number 152, I recommend the applicant be granted his request in accordance with site plan, staff report, and a happy wife.
Do I have a second to Mr. Ebbett's motion?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Goretz. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? The chair votes with the motion. Thank you, good luck, and Mr. McMillan, happy retirement.
Thank you very much, Madam.
All right.
Thank you all.
Bye now.
Yes, Sarah.
All right. All right, let's go to docket item. And we have two more cases and there's no more continuances, correct? So I shouldn't take one of these out of order, right? Okay, because I don't see a staff report for 15. That's why I ask. Is there some reason we don't have a staff report for 15?
There should be a staff report for 15. There's not a staff report for 14.
Oh, it's just misnumbered. Okay, I got it.
Okay.
All right, now that's why I was asking, because I wanted to make sure, because if I'm holding somebody, I was going to let them go. Okay, let's move to docket item 13, case number 129, with an address of 3625 Central, with the applicant and all parties either in support or opposition. Please raise your hand to be promoted. Looks like we have a lot of people on this.
Yes.
Okay.
A Gail Flick is being promoted.
We also have a required quorum on this case, Madam Chair.
That's right, we do. Okay, so it's myself, Mr. Kelleher, Mr. Ebbets, Mr. Stiller, and Mr. Banuki. Everybody else can blacken their screens for now. So Mr. Goretz and Ms. Mixdorf, you can blacken your screens.
A Zachary Block was also promoted.
Okay.
Angie Splitgerber.
Okay.
And a Gary
Wilnauer.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Kathleen Brock.
Okay, let me get everybody here and then we'll start this process. Okay, I think I'm waiting for one other person's face to appear. 1 second.
Everyone has been connected.
Yeah, I think I'm waiting. There's Ms. Brock. All right, Mr. Wilnauer, I'm going to start with you. Your counsel, I believe, for the applicant. Is that correct?
Good almost afternoon. Appreciate your willingness to take our case here today. This is a request for rehearing on a prior hearing that was held in relation to my client's property.
Yeah, and Mr. Wilnauer, I have to swear everybody in, so just.
I apologize.
That's all right. I know this procedure is a little different than court, so bear with us. So, sir, can you state your name and counsel that's with you so I can get that for the court reporter, please?
Gary Wilnauer and my associate Connor DeWitt.
Thank you. All right. And Mr. Block, would you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, Zachary Block.
And you are the applicant with Mr. Wilnauer, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Ms. Flick, what is your association with the case? I can't hear you, Ms. Flick.
Flick, I'm the real estate agent and I'm in support of this.
Okay, so you're here in support of the rehearing. Okay, and it was Gail Flick. Sorry, we're having a hard time hearing you. Okay, again, okay, sit tight. We'll get back to you. Okay, all right, and then Ms. Splitgerber, again, are you here in opposition or support? Opposition.
Opposition.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Let me swear everybody in, and that way I won't have to do that as the case proceeds. Mr. Wilnauer and Mr. DeWitt, I know that's unusual, but lawyers do have to be sworn in. So would you please both raise your right hands? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I do.
Thank you.
And Ms. Otto, sorry to interrupt. Don't forget about Kathleen Brock.
Oh, I did forget about Ms. Brock. Well, Ms. Brock, I'll get to you in just a second. Mr. Block, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Flick, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, that's an affirmative. Ms. Flick Gerber, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Ms. Brock, can you state your name for the record, please?
It's Kathleen Brock.
And are you here in support or opposition?
Support.
Okay, I can't see you. Do you have a camera to turn on so I can issue the oath?
One moment. Now I'm disappearing totally.
Don't see her. Did she go? I think she left.
Yeah, she's no longer on the
Okay,
call.
we'll have to, hopefully she'll call back in and we'll deal with, if she's in support, we'll bring her back in if she appears on the screen. Anna, let's keep moving forward. All right, so this case is a rehearing as Mr. Wilner started to present. I don't believe there's any exhibits we need to admit at this point. I understand that there was a stay of execution entered by Judge Round, and so we can hear, at least hear the presentation of what the new evidence that was not available at the time of the first hearing before this board will consider if there should be a rehearing. So Mr. Wilnauer, I'd like to hear from you first. Before you present any evidence, what the board first has to do is you have to tell us as a basis so that we can then decide if we will have the rehearing today, what evidence was available that was not available at the time of the first hearing that is now available, which would be the basis for a rehearing of this board.
Thank you. And I see that Ms. Brock has also rejoined.
Okay, all right. Let me swear her in. Thank you. Ms. Brock, can you state your name, please? Oh, now you're muted. Sorry.
Okay, Kathleen Brock.
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brock. Now you can go silent until we hear back from you. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Wilner, go ahead. If you could list out that information so this board can first make a determination if there is a basis for rehearing.
Yes, first I would note that in support of the new evidence, prior to the prior hearing, my client, Mr. Hayden, was representing them, and I understand that they were trying to find prior owners. They could not find a prior owner. We were able to locate Ms. Brock, who was the owner of the property back in 2007, which is the issues at hand here today as to the 1 year notice. So the information that was available at the prior hearing, we now have the evidence through Ms. Brock to provide the board as to her ownership and lack of notice that was required to be sent. In addition, we also see that there has been a supplement to exhibit number 10, which was part of Mr. Clements, the staff's report. And part of that staff report actually includes additional information that was not previously available to my client, where we can see that actually notice was not sent to Ms. Brock back in 2007, but the notice was actually sent to a prior owner of the property, not to Ms. Brock, who was the current owner in 2007. So we believe that there's new evidence, and then also an additional basis for seeking this is also for good cause. And my clients believe that there's good cause that they will be able to show as to the issues that were raised previously as to the undue hardship and the character of the surrounding area.
Okay, so just so that I understand, the new evidence, so Mr. Block was previously represented by counsel, Mr. Wilnar, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're saying that Ms. Brock was available to be found, but she just was not found by prior counsel.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Through our efforts, we were able to locate her and prior owners of 3625 Central.
And this exhibit 10, okay, so she was there, she just wasn't found. So in exhibit 10, so I can make sure that I'm fully understanding this additional, or what you say is new evidence, was that something that was available and just not discovered, or is it something that has been newly created since the last hearing?
It has been newly created since the last hearing. In terms of exhibit number 10, there were additional documents that have been provided by staff to exhibit number 10, which is the staff report, which included notification that was provided, and there was actually a return receipt certificate of mailing that was sent to Dana Parsons, who was a prior owner, not to Ms. Brock in 2007. So there's additional evidence in the staff's report, exhibit number 10, that is also as part of the new information.
Are you talking about today's staff report, Mr. Wilnar, exhibit 10 of that? I'm trying to understand what you're referencing.
That is correct.
Okay. So what I see is called the CLNU, or the CLN working file. You're saying that there's additional documentation in there that wasn't produced at the last hearing?
That's correct.
Okay. But was it something that could have been requested by prior counsel?
Well, as far as the information, I'm not sure that a request or that matter could have been made to staff for producing. The information that was provided by staff in prior exhibit 10 did not contain the information as to the prior owner and the notification that was sent. As I recall, that was not an issue and it was not presented, where currently we now know that the city did not provide notice to Ms. Brock, but instead had provided apparently notice they mailed to Ms. or Dana Parsons, Mr. Parsons, that information.
Okay. All right. So the information in exhibit 10, I think I understand your presentation. The board will have to decide based on our guidelines. The information you're citing is a city document that wasn't created. It was in existence. It just was not presented by any side at the last hearing. I think that's what you're telling me.
That's my understanding. That's
okay.
Correct.
All right. So board members, I think if I understand what Mr. Wilnar is presenting to us, I think you've heard it. So you know the board's requirements as to rehearing. So if you have questions about whether or not the information was available at the last hearing or not, or for good cause, please ask those questions now, and then we'll take a vote on whether this case is subject to rehearing under our rules. Do I have any questions for Mr. Wilnar?
I have a question, and I guess I'm trying to understand it in all its detail. The information about previous ownership, wasn't that something that could have been researched and understood without benefit of the Compass system or a staff report?
It was my.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilnar. You can answer that question.
To the extent I really can't answer that as to prior counsel, but it was my understanding that prior ownership was investigated. It was just not part of that information that was presented, frankly. But the new information from staff has shown that there was additional documents that were produced by the staff. Now, whether frankly, the process for seeking that from staff prior to the other hearing. I also know that Mr. Hayden, when he presented the information, was of the understanding that there was no objection, and it was a quick hearing at that time, that there was no expectation of an issue. We now understand that there is opposition, with all due respect, and that there's additional information that we have secured that we think shows good cause for why this matter should be reheard, in that the prior owner that would have been subject to the notice requirements under 88-61001C was not provided notice, and we have secured her as a witness here today.
That helps considerably in my mind, but I have a new quandary now, and not being a lawyer. How do we look at failure of previous counsel?
Well, you have to apply our rules, Mr. Stiller. Okay, you have to look at those guidelines that were given. I can't give you legal advice, but I can reiterate the standard, which is, was the evidence available at the prior hearing or for good cause?
Or and under Article 7 for rehearings, paragraph G, the board may grant a rehearing, which includes new evidence, which is part of our presentation, that was not available at the time of the original hearing, or for good cause being shown. There are two criteria that can be used. We believe that there is new evidence, but at the same time that with good cause shown, for my client needing to have a rehearing on this request.
Okay, Mr. Stiller, does that answer your question?
I think it's as close as it's going to get.
Okay, all right. Other questions from board members? Okay, all right. Then I believe I need a motion, as we always do in these rehearing cases. I need a motion so we can first determine if the board believes there is a basis for rehearing, and if such, then we'll hear the case depending on the outcome of that. So do I have a motion that the board rehear this case?
Madam Chair, I move that the application for rehearing be denied.
Okay, I have a motion for Mr. Kelleher. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Stiller. All in favor, please say aye to that motion.
Aye.
Aye.
And chair votes with the motion. The motion for rehearing is denied. Your next step would be the circuit court. Thank you all. All right, we have one last case before the board today, which is docket item 15, case number 153. The case, a street address is 808 West 29th Street. Would the applicant and all interested persons please raise their hand to be promoted so that we can hear this case?
I am promoting Keith Mueller, a Bobby Pendleton, and a Jameen, and a Richard Hernandez.
Okay.
Bobby, Keith, and Richard and Jameen have all been connected.
Okay. Mr. Hernandez, I see you here. You're here, so let me find out. You could state your name in this case again, please.
Richard Hernandez, President of the West Side Neighborhood Association.
And are you here in support or opposition of this case?
Opposition.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll swear you in just a minute. Mr. Pendleton, can you state your name, please?
Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Kelleher.
I'm sorry, but I need to recuse in this matter.
Okay, you're excused and recused because this is the last case. So we'll see you next time. All right, Mr. Pendleton, let's go back to you. Can you state your full name, please?
Robert Pendleton.
Thank you. And who else do I see? Is it Jermaine? Jermaine? I'm sorry, you're muted, ma'am. I can't hear you.
Jermaine Abidokin.
Jermaine Abidokin. Okay. All right. And what is your interest in this case, ma'am?
I live next door to 808 West 29th Street.
Are you here in support or opposition?
Opposition.
Opposition. Okay. And then I thought there was one more person. Mr. Mueller, can you hear me? Can you turn on your camera and microphone?
Let's see. Microphone's on. I'm not sure why the computer or the camera's not working.
Are you here in support or opposition?
Support. I'm the architect.
Oh, you're the architect. Okay. Well, it would be great to see you if I could see you, because I'm sure you're going to be making the presentation for the owner.
True.
Okay. That'd be great to see you then. If you can get your camera to work.
There I am.
There you are, live and in person. Okay. All right. All four of you who have identified, Mr. Hernandez, Mr. Pendleton, Ms. Abigad, say that again one more time.
Abidogun.
Abidogun. See, I'm going to do, okay. And then, can you both please raise your right hands to be sworn, all four of you, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay. All right. Mr. Mueller, if you're making the presentation on behalf of Mr. Pendleton, do you have any objection to our admitting administrative exhibits 1 through 10 that is outlined and described in the staff report on page 2 of the report?
No.
Administrative exhibits 1 through 10 will be admitted. And Anna, are you doing this presentation? Or is
yes, and we also have Charisse from the permits division.
Okay.
She might need to be sworn in before
No,
she gives
no,
her
I swore her
testimony.
in. No, I swore her in first thing this morning.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just
It's okay. I remember doing that.
okay.
Yeah, she was
Great.
one of the people I did.
Okay, so the final docket today focuses on 808 West 29th Street. It is currently zoned R6, and the applicant wishes to appeal determinations related to a CLNU. So the site is located in the Midtown portion of Kansas City. It is specifically located adjacent to the Liberty Memorial Park site. We have Southwest Trafficway over here to the east, and it is at the corner of 29th and Summit Street. The subject property is highlighted in yellow, a few lots down from the corner. The subject site is where I'm circling with my cursor, the 2-story balcony home. This is a Google Street capture from March of 2019. And now I'm going to go through a few facts related to the case. So there are evidence that this property was a duplex at one point. You can see the 2 meters and the property, which is, it's hard to read because it's such an old map, but it was zoned R4 at some point from 1998. And this could have been a legally established use at that time. However, in 2010, the property was zoned to R1B, which is very relevant to the R6 zoning district today. And we have had no evidence that that CLNU was sought at that time. So a couple more facts related to the CLNU that the investigator used to make their determination is that any nonconformities must be maintained in safe and in good repair. Incidental repairs and little maintenance upkeep to the property is permitted, but no major structural alterations may be made to that nonconformity. So here are some photos to support those facts. You can see that in 2017, the structure was in quite a state of disrepair. This is a photo, I believe, from the 2nd story, and then this is from the back of the structure. And today, the structure has been completely gutted and is no longer arranged as a duplex. Also, losing a non-conforming status, a building or structure ceases to be non-conforming if it's not used for its non-conforming manner for a period of 12 consecutive months. And it must also be maintained structurally for said time. When a non-conforming structure is intentionally destroyed or damaged by control of the property owner, then it also loses its non-conforming status. This is a screen capture from a advertisement for selling the property. You can see that they were advertising it as a single family home or as a duplex, and it was on the market for a considerable amount of time in that state. As it stands today, a duplex is not permitted in the R6 zoning district unless it is on a corner lot. And as previously mentioned, this property is landlocked by other parcels. And to conclude with some key points, again, in 2010, the property was rezoned to R1B, which is now associated with the R6 zoning districts. And there were no attempts to obtain the CLNU at that time. Deconstruction of the building has occurred and has brought the property out of its non-conforming status, and a duplex is not permitted in the R6 zoning district. And that concludes my presentation. Sharice can also answer any additional questions as it revolves to her investigation.
Thank you, Anna. You can stop sharing your screen. Mr. Mueller, let me just move through this. I think the evidence is, I want to make sure that you don't have contrary evidence. We've seen photographs from 2017 where this structure was in significant disrepair. Has anyone lived in this structure since 2017?
Not that we know of.
Okay, and you agree that no CLNU was applied for this location to keep it in its duplex status?
As far as I know, no.
Okay. These are hard cases, but it seems like no one's lived in this place for going on 5 years now. And by your admission, there's no CLNU. I don't know what the board would be able to do to allow this to exist. What are you asking today? I mean, that seems to be what you're asking, for it to be allowed to be a duplex, right?
Well, I mean, the whole appeal process is to recognize positions where, owners are put in undue hardship and, hurt in ways that they're not intended to be. I mean, just if I could kind of briefly recap what I think happened. I mean, they bought this house, this building a year or so ago, and they bought a vacant rundown duplex. Everything about this building says it's a duplex. It's got 2 front doors. One door leads directly up to the second floor. One goes into the first floor. All of the windows align on the first and second floor. There's a back stair that goes from the second floor to the backyard, which you wouldn't see in a single family residence. So they purchased this property with the idea of improving it as a duplex that they would rent. The only reason this issue came to light is because they wanted to improve a very dangerous, very steep stair that led to the second floor. And we submitted drawings because they wanted to put in a safe, code compliant stair. And that's when this whole issue came up. And we've been told by other people that a lot of times people don't even submit drawings for something like this. They just do these things. And so they're trying to do the right thing.
And we appreciate all of that, but just because.
Okay, and there's some other things that were incorrect.
Okay.
The property was described as gutted. What happened was, I mean, they had planned to, rewire and replumb the space. They had no reason to think that anybody would doubt that it was a duplex. They had, when they started doing this work, there was no reason to think that this was going to be an issue. So that's why it appeared to be gutted. And so that statement is just incorrect. I mean, they were just trying to make improvements to the property and work on a timeline that they could make work.
I'm one board member, Mr. Mueller, but my bigger hurdle is that this place has been, there was no application for a CLNU after 2010 as there should have been.
Okay, but they're a new owner, so how are they supposed to know this?
Well, they have to do their research. I mean, there would be a title search that would show that sort of information. A title.
Okay,
Okay, I mean,
we've got the owner in mind here. Bobby, you want to comment on that?
I mean, the title search didn't say anything about it being forced to be a single family. I didn't see anything on there about that. I saw the R6 zoning. There wasn't a comment on the title search about R6 turning into something in 2010 that forced it to be a single family home. And the problem is, I mean, the way the house is actually set up, I mean, the integrity of it is a duplex in the sense of the stairs literally go to the east door directly. And if you were to turn into a single family and make one front door, I don't even know how you would either get furniture around that turn to get up the stairs if you were to use the west door, or even if you were to use the east door as the main entry to get it onto the first floor. It's 100% set up as a duplex. And I mean, we try to take all the legal steps and, get the permits and get approvals and all that. And this is where it's led us. I mean, we've just been stalled for 6 months. We're just trying to do the right thing. We're trying to take an old abandoned building and make it nice. There was homeless people living in it. I don't know why the neighbors have such an issue with us, fixing up a place and getting the homeless people out of it. And
well, I mean, to comment on the further hardship is, okay, if this doesn't get as approved as a complex or as a duplex, so now it either has to be redesigned as a very compromised single family house, or they have to tear it down. And actually to do either one has incredible hurdles to cover. I mean, it's only, the exterior walls are less than 3 feet to the property line. So current codes don't even allow openings in a new single family house that's that close to the property lines. So they can grandfather the existing openings, but they have to work around the existing window openings that were designed for a duplex, and or they have to tear it down. I mean, and that was not their intention when they purchased this property.
Let me hear from Mr. Hernandez. What's your opposition to this? You said you were in opposition.
Zoned R6. I don't care about all the other stuff. The city did that. We did that as a neighborhood, and that's what it needs to remain. And I got pictures that shows look like only one door. I did not see a second door. You've owned the building for about 2 years. You've done nothing. There was somebody living back there. You've done nothing.
That's just incorrect.
Mr. Mueller, he gets to speak and then you can speak. We can't both
speak. 2 doors. Why is he saying that?
Well, I'll give you a chance to speak. Let him finish. We do this one at a time. There's a court reporter. This is a hearing, not a free-for-all.
We got there's parking issues. It's labeled only as a 2-bedroom. There's, I don't know, I counted like 20 violations against that, 311 calls. So if they owned it for 2 years, they could have done something. They could have cleaned it up. They did nothing. They just did. I got pictures to show right now in December, they have done nothing. They just not cleaned it up. They've owned it for 2 years. I say no. I say we do not give them this.
May I speak?
You have problems building. I've been building my whole life, built around stuff like that all the time. It's not that hard. You just have to do it. You want to probably make it an Airbnb. We don't like that either. That doesn't fit in there. There's not enough room for parking. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Mr. Pendleton, you can respond.
I guess first off, I would like to say that there is definitely 2 doors in the front of the house. I have only owned it for 1 year. I haven't owned it for 2 years. I'd like to clarify that as well. I bought it in December, a year ago December, so a year and a month. And as far as cleaning the place up, yeah, I mean, there was trash all in the backyard. We cleaned all that up. As far as the exterior is concerned, it's kind of hard paint it and whatnot while we're in this process, because we're being told we're in limbo. We don't know if it's a duplex or a single family. So, you know, before we do any kind of changes to the exterior, we want to know what can happen. You know, we've gutted it. Everything's good on the inside. We rewired the whole thing. I mean, we've done a lot of work, actually. I don't think that's fair. Yeah, I think that the house is in the best shape it's been in the last 10 years. And it definitely was built as a duplex with 2 doors. So I guess I'm a little confused.
Well, the problem is the process wasn't followed and you've lost the status as the duplex. So whether it was or wasn't, the process, while not followed by you, prior owners didn't follow. So you suffer because of what they haven't done, and we can't help you fix that. So let me hear from the last person who's here in opposition, Miss.
You can call me Jermaine if it's easier.
I'm just gonna call you Jermaine.
Yeah, my students call me Dr. J, so it's okay.
Well, all right, go ahead.
So I've lived at 810 since 2019, and we're actually very grateful that Bobby and his father bought the house. That's not the issue. We're really happy that somebody's taking this project on. The issue is that, like a lot of other older homes, and my grandmother's on McGee is a good example, a lot of people altered their homes for extended family into what appears to be duplexes. And this one obviously went to the next step in 1998, but it lost that status. The problem is there is no space. It is not a healthy situation to make it into a duplex. I do have a small PowerPoint that I submitted to you guys. I don't know if you have it there, to show just how close together we are.
I don't, who did you submit that to, ma'am?
I sent it to whatever the link is on the thing back before the first. I have it with me too now, if you want me to share it. I can,
well, but I'll be happy to admit it. I'm just gonna need to mark it as an exhibit. And then I'm gonna make sure that staff.
Yeah, I got an email confirmation that you guys received it. And it was prior to
I don't
the
have a
first
copy
meeting.
of the PowerPoint. I'm sorry, I don't know where the exhibit went.
Let me see.
Exactly which address it went to.
Why don't we do this? If it's a PowerPoint presentation, if you can share your screen, do you know, you understand how to do that?
Yeah.
We'll mark it as Exhibit 11. I'll admit it, but then you need to make sure that Anna gets a copy of it at the conclusion of the hearing. Okay.
Okay, and it will take a minute whenever I click it over to PowerPoint. It kind of blacks out and then it comes back.
Right. And Anna has placed her email address in the chat box, so you need to. That's where you need to send it. Okay.
Oh, okay, I'll do that. Okay.
All right, you may share your screen.
Okay, did it share?
No.
Oh, damn. Okay, let me try again. I got in this. So I clicked share screen, and then I clicked the PowerPoint. Can anybody see me?
No, we cannot.
Okay. I don't know why it's not. Oh, okay, there. Now, okay, now I got the second share on. Okay.
Yes, it's now showing. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay. Every computer is so different. Okay. So this is going to blank out in a minute and then come back. Okay. Okay, so, well, there we go. Okay, so like I said, I live at 810 and then the Menezes live at 806. So what you're going to see is all three of our houses. This is the Menezes, this is 808, the house in question, and this is mine. There's minimal space here. So I took a tape measure. This is a 16-foot tape measure. It literally goes from where the pathway from between the Menezes house and then the pathway between mine and 808. And it's 16 feet, literally, like just barely enough. In fact, every time somebody parks there, they're really parking partly in from my house. Oops, I need to go back a screen, sorry. So, because I couldn't get all the tape into it, I did a small video. I don't know if you can see that.
We can.
Okay, well, it shows you the space between my house and theirs. And then it goes over. Hopefully I got the tape there. So that's the end of the tape, and that's where their house ends. So I went back to the plats. It is true that a lot of people refab their houses at the, back in the 40s. These houses were built between 1895 and 1910 on the north side of 29th Street. They're really in historically pretty good shape considering, even though this house was, like he said, falling down, literally. It was in the back especially. And I watch this because the homeless people do come in to stay in it. I've called the police more than once to make sure that the house is kept safe. It was closed as a non-safe building both in 2017 and then again in 2019 because homeless people were still coming in and they start fires there or they rig up electricity illegally, which makes it a fire hazard. It's not that I feel bad for I do feel bad for the homeless people. But anyway, this side of the street has all the original houses. Across the street are triplexes. And one of the major issues in this neighborhood going north and south is there is no parking. When I park in front of my house, then, and my car was in that photo, there's literally only 16 feet between, for somebody else to park. So there is no parking for a second person, let alone a second family there. And across the street, those are triplexes that have a lot of open space, but they each have a full garage for each one of the plexes or the apartments. And they have enough space in their drive. It goes far enough back that 2 cars can fit in front of the garage, in front of each garage. So even though they have adequate parking, I'm going to tell you the truth is that during the day, whenever Bobby and his dad come out, it looks like there's plenty of space because everybody works here. This is a working neighborhood. And so at night, what they can't see that the rest of us know too well is that this whole street fills up. Even though everybody has parking in front of their triplex apartment, they still have additional people. I think those are 2 to 3 bedroom triplexes. I'm not sure, but there's at least 3 adults probably in each of those that I see that I talked to or noticed during the day. So once they come home, this street is completely full on both sides of the road. People use my parking in the front because I actually park in a utility right away the majority of the time. So in the evenings when people come home, they'll use that space in front of 808. They'll use my space if I'm parked in the utility right away, which is a drive that happens to be between my house and 812. It's going to get worse before it gets better because you guys authorized a whole huge 48 unit complex down there at the corner of 31st and Summit. And they're going to have 48 units there. And they're figuring that they have parking for 48. They have one car per person, even though they know that most dual, if it's a couple household, there's probably going to be 2 cars each. This neighborhood is going to be, this street is already 1 lane only 90% of the time. Everybody knows that. You go from Summit and you go down to the Southwest Boulevard area, and you're driving in 1 lane and you have to move back and forth between the parked cars to get out. So this is not a good environment for a duplex. For a single family home, which was the original intent of that building. Yes, there is a second door now. That door was probably added on, before 1998, but way after 1900 when the house was originally built. The design of that house is similar to mine, and the original steps probably went down the center of the house because my house was built in 1900 and that house probably was too. And there was a fireplace adjacent to that on one side for cooking, and then there was a front room. So in fact, it's been redesigned more than once. And so to have to resign, since they've gutted it, to switch that staircase around probably wouldn't be as big of a problem as what they're saying. Just because I know what my floor plan looks like, and I know that had the same fireplace in it that mine had. And I've been in that house when it was, because the the homeless people had opened all the doors, and my realtor and I were trying to find the original owners, but they were avoiding the city, I think, because they had some violations that they hadn't paid. So I never found them. Otherwise, I would have bought it myself, and I would have torn it down because it was that scary. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you stop sharing your screen and then send a copy?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Mueller, Mr. Pendleton, I'm going to give you the last say because this is your application. Anything else you'd like the board to consider?
I mean, I'll just briefly reiterate. I mean, they purchased a duplex and they're planning on renting it, and now they're in a position where they, like I said, it's either extremely compromised single family or they have to tear it down and do something else, because it is not going to be easy to make the changes necessary to make this, you know, single family house with any integrity. So.
All right, board members, questions for Mr. Mueller or Mr. Pendleton? Hearing no questions, I would then entertain a motion on this matter.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Stiller.
in case number 153, is it 153 or 152?
153.
153, that the board uphold the determination that the certificate of legal non-conforming use had expired.
I have a motion from Mr. Stiller. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Banuki. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair, with the motion, the request has been upheld. Thank you, folks. And I believe that is the last case the board has today. So we are adjourned. We will see board members and staff. We will see you in a couple weeks. Thank you all very much.